I think it's one of those films that really revolutionized my life in the last decade. I think recently, because we came to the end of a decade, and I reflected on all the films that I loved in the last 10 years, and I think it won number one. It's film of the decade for me.
Yeah, I'm similar, because I really love it as much as you, Emily. When I came out, I was thinking, wow, this is really something. And then as the years have gone on, I've realized this is really divisive. And every time I hear more views on it, I'm just like, wow, this really does either work or not work in a fundamental way that kind of breaks the experience for a lot of people.
Hello, film fans. Joining Flixwatcher in the studio today, we have Amelie.
Hello.
Matt.
Hello.
And as always, Kobe.
Hey.
And we're here to review La La Land. Thank you, as always, to the mighty people for the mighty, mighty tunes. And thanks to Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills.
Please do remember to write a review and rate us on Apple Podcasts and anywhere you can do where you listen to the podcast, because it really does help us.
And you can join in the conversation with us on Twitter
at FlixWatcherPod and on Instagram
at Flixwatcher. Hello and welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher. Joining us today we have Amelie and Matt. If you would like to say hello to our lovely listeners and tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hello, I'm Amelie. So I am 1/4 of a podcast which is specialized in reviewing erotic thrillers, everything we love about them and everything we hate about them. We've been doing...
What do you love the most? Is it the nakedness?
No. Actually, what I love the most is the thrilling element of the films. But unfortunately, most of them are not really thrilling. I love the twist. That's my favorite things. But yeah, so we've been doing it for about 51 episodes now. I'm the only French and the only girl on this podcast. I'm doing it with 3 other guys. One is Scottish and 2 others are English. And all of them...
I like the way you're calling out the nationalities.
Yeah. The what? Yeah. And they're all really invested in that kind of genre. We started it because we were talking on Twitter about guilty pleasures and, the kind of films that we used to watch when we were teenagers. And I just admitted that I used to watch that kind of films with my parents when I was younger. And we started talking about it. And then someone said, oh, let's do a podcast about it. And me, I was like trying to backpedal about it because I thought, I don't know if I'd be able to be eloquent since I'm not, it's not my native tongue, to speak in English. But I thought, screw it, I've done a master thesis in film analysis and literature and I should be fine. But I didn't realize that there were that many erotic thrillers around.
You thought it was going to be like a short run series.
Yeah, honestly, I thought it would be like 10 episodes. I didn't realize it was a basic instinct, fatal attraction, And then I was like, oh no, there are so many of them. And many, many bad ones compared to good ones.
So I remember... I didn't watch that many because reasons. But there was one. Was it The Specialist?
Oh yeah, with Sylvester Stallone in it.
Stone
and Sharon
Stone.
Yeah, is that an erotic thriller? I would have thought it's more of an action film.
Well, I thought it was.
I think it has moments that, they're not going to be erotic between those.
This is the thing.
But it was sold as maybe kind of having
because it had Sharon Stone in it, so therefore it's that already is like, okay, guys,
it's erotic.
Has she done a non-erotic film?
She makes them erotic.
With Dustin Hoffman. It's a kind of a sci-fi thing when they go underneath.
Total Recall.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, whenever you hear in the 90s Sharon Stone, you're like, okay, there's going to be it's an erotic thriller. But it was just like, even at like 15 and whenever it came out, I just thought, this is rubbish.
But you haven't seen Basic Instinct or
of course.
Okay.
That's what obviously piqued my interest.
So to speak.
Who are you?
My name is Matt. I co-host a Star Trek for newbies podcast called Spocklight. We're very much, if you're not into Star Trek, come to us. There's plenty out there if you are into it, so give us some love. We've covered the movies, 13 movies, and dabbled in the TV show, the TV series, many of them.
Yeah, I was going to say, which one? There's it's not 8
the singular
different versions?
TV show. I found a book once that was from the early to mid 90s that
Right.
basically said, oh yeah, if you add up all the Trek content, it equals this amount. And this was before Voyager, before all sorts, and it was insane. It was too much.
Because the TV shows, so you got the original,
Original,
Next Generation,
animated series.
Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Picard now,
Yeah.
and Discovery.
Yeah.
And there's another one I'm missing.
Enterprise.
Enterprise,
That's
yeah.
the Scott Bakula one.
Yeah. Scott Bakula.
So,
hey,
yeah,
legend.
we're currently drowning in the amount of Trek content. So we've got to catch up on Picard. We've got Star Trek Discovery Season 3 later this year, Lower Decks, new animated series. So, I mean, funny enough, we're not like a recap show, so we're not kind of doing weekly recaps, and kind of thank God, because I think it would kill us. But we tend to do kind of season recaps when they're done, so that's going to be a lot more manageable. But we're very looking forward to seeing what comes along. And hopefully the new Star Trek 4, which I believe Noah Hawley is currently attached to, if that goes ahead, Fargo's own Noah Hawley. That should be good.
Fargo the TV series.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, love the show, so hopefully that kind of... I mean, it would be a lot less bombastic than J.J. Abrams' side of things.
Yeah, he kind of, his debut film was out last year, Lucy in the Sky, which I didn't see, but it got quite a mixed reception.
Yeah.
But
It's the Natalie
Fargo and
Portman one.
Legion
Yeah.
are both really, really solid. So hopefully he's more suited in the sci-fi realm.
Okay, so we are here talking about La La Land. Amelie, you're smiling.
Yeah.
I think we can kind of guess what kind of scores we're going to get from here. So you chose La La Land. Can you tell us why you chose it and give us a synopsis in 1 minute or less?
Okay, so I chose it because I think it's one of those films that really revolutionized my life in the last decade. I think recently, because we came to the end of a decade,
Yeah.
and I reflected on all the films that I loved in the last 10 years, and I think it won number one. It's film of the decade for me.
That begs the question: What else was in the
There was The Revenant as well.
Okay.
I think it was second, and I had Call Me by Your Name
Right.
as well. Weirdly enough, we had a late entry of Rocket Man, who I saw so many times last year.
How
Did love it.
disappointed are you that Rocket Man isn't featured when We Will Rock You in the awards chat?
What do you mean?
Because We
yeah.
Will Rock You was had Remy Malek and
And you mean
Winner.
Bohemian
Yeah.
Rhapsody?
Oh, Bohemian Rhapsody. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bohemian Rhapsody. Yeah. So Rocket Man. It's such a shame that he didn't get the nomination.
Yeah,
because,
Taron's being robbed, eh?
Yeah, completely
Yeah.
robbed. Yeah. So I just adore that film. But yeah, so La La Land for me. I saw it at LFF.
Okay.
And I was very lucky because I didn't get a ticket in the first round of sales. And
Let's not give away the tips on how to get the tickets because there's a very special trick. We'll tell you guys afterwards if you
I
can
know.
speak
I
to
mean,
us. Yeah.
me it was a friend, and
Okay,
the friend
good.
had bought 2 tickets, so
Yeah.
for 2 different screenings. And she saw that I was so dismayed, I was so gutted that I didn't get any ticket, that she said, I'm going twice, so if you want, you can go with my boyfriend the following day. I'm going to the gala night. You can go in the morning and go and see it with my boyfriend. So I was okay. And I was very lucky because for the gala, Ryan Gosling didn't come.
Right.
And the following day, they said, at the beginning, they said, okay, so Damien Chazelle and the cinematographer will be there. And I think there were 2 producers. And they said, and we have a surprise at the end of the film. So I thought, imagine, maybe it's Emma. Because Ryan was recording Blade Runner at the time.
Right,
And
okay.
he was, in Eastern Europe or something. So I thought, it's not Ryan. And then at the end, it was Ryan. And I was front row. So I was really, really, really happy. So it just
Just leaping at his feet. Like,
yeah, no, but it was already. I was so heartbroken and so moved by that film, and then they came and they talked about the film, so it was magical for me.
Was this in the Odeon main
Yeah, the
screen?
old Odeon.
Yeah.
Very
I
so.
saw Whiplash there at LFF.
Ah, did
so
you?
his previous film, and that had, I think, Miles Teller and Chazelle were there, but that was one of the only ones I saw in that cinema before it had the revamp.
Ah,
But
okay.
it was a hell of a screening.
Yeah.
Helen, what are your thoughts on La La Land? Oh, sorry, we need
So
the
we need the-
synopsis.
So the
Yeah.
synopsis. So let's try to make it short. So basically, despite a really rocky start, a girl who is a trying actress and a man who is obsessed with jazz and just wants to open his club meet and fall in love. But because of their careers and their obsessions, and is this love story going to carry on and strive, or will they end up following their dreams of their careers, but to the detriment of their love story? So that's basically the synopsis.
Helen, thoughts? La La Land.
So every now and again, there kind of comes a film, I think we've all been there, where you kind of see the talent involved and the anticipation is high and there's just so many elements in it that you're like, this is going to be so good. And you hear the reviews and then you see it and you feel as though you've been sold an absolute lie. And
so that's interesting. That's interesting too.
And in the same way that you have so much passion for it, I'm so passionate about it for the other reasons. So for me, this is a love story that from the outset is never going to last because there's kind of no romance there to begin with. I have a few problems with this. Both of the characters are there's nothing really to them. I mean, Ryan Gosling's pretty awful, and there's no kind of hiding like how awful and boorish she is. And Emma Stone is kind of sort of a wannabe actress, and she never seems quite comfortable in how she's playing it. And rewatching it, they both just don't look comfortable dancing or being these characters, and kind of look like they're sort of looking at the camera going, am I doing this right? Because I went into this thinking this is going to be Crazy Stupid Love Mark II, and it's going to have all that chemistry and all the charisma that they had and all of that energy, and there was none of that there. But I think what's even worse for me about this is it's a musical, but there's no songs and the music in it is really average, and it kind of forgets that it's a musical halfway through, because you kind of have like 2-3 songs at the start and then they get together and then there's no real song again. There's sort of he joins like this really awful funk jazz band with John Legend, and that's kind of where there's some music there, but then it sort of stops and you don't really kind of pick up the sort of musical element until sort of the end. So,
well, I've got an explanation for that.
I should say that also, I absolutely loved Whiplash.
Yeah.
Like, love it to bits. I thought it was visceral. I thought it was aggressive. I thought it was clever.
We've recorded Whiplash on here, so you can listen to that episode.
About how much anticipation I had based on this I came out of the cinema and I was so angry. And I had not returned back to it. When it came on Netflix, I went, not going to get involved in you again.
I'm so sorry for having picked it.
Had Ryan Gosling turned up at the end of your screening, would that have augmented it for you?
I would have gone, what was that, Ryan? What was that? You sold me a lie.
What are your thoughts, Matt?
Well, I'm definitely in Amelie's camp, so you'd be happy to hear, even though you left me in it on Friday Night Lights. But anyway, I really love it. See, I really love Whiplash, and I really love this, and I really love First Man. Like First Man, I kind of had to warm up to a bit, but the more I rewatch that one now, I think it could even be his best film.
Have you seen his first film?
No, Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench, right? That's the one I haven't. But for someone who's done these 3 films that for me are all practically 5 stars, is pretty amazing. But I do really love it, and I do really buy into these guys, and it is a film full of kind of artifice in the way it's put together, and it's deliberately so. Like, it is harking back to a lot of these old school musicals and everything from the color scheme and the shooting style. But I think it's a film that pays homage to musicals without actually being one. Like, it is a musical, but it kind of the way it plays with it isn't. So it starts off with the biggest musical number, and I don't think that's I think that's very deliberate. And then as it goes through, like, reality
important there as well. It's not, you don't have Emma Stone or Ryan Gosling singing in that.
Yeah. And then it goes straight into Someone in the Crowd, which is another big number. And then as it goes on, like, as reality creeps in for these guys, the fantasticalness kind of shrinks down. So you've got, when they're kind of dating and stuff, it's still a bit magical, and then their bit on the mountainside on the hilltop is kind of more just as if 2 people were doing some improv-y dance.
I still think that's quite a magical.
That's kind of like the transition point. And then by the time they're just singing City of Stars to each other, just kind of laughing over their lines, it's kind of the point. It's like you're out of the musical world at this point. And then it just goes through their lives, and it isn't until the ending is allowed to reveal a kind of fairy tale approach of what could have happened, and the musical element comes back, and I think that's very deliberate as well. But I can understand that, like, there is a good chunk of this film without kind of those numbers, and it kind of has to ride on the more traditional score from Justin Hurwitz instead. But these guys, I find them really charming. I mean, Gosling can wear the hell out of any shirt. Like, I want his whole wardrobe. And Stone, I think she definitely knows how to weaponize her kind of big expressions, and it can seem at times as quite a broad performance. But I think she really narrows in when it needs to be, and for me, it really works.
So, what for you guys was your kind of favorite songs, Helen, if you have one? Or then none.
The only one that I can even vaguely remember is the City of Stars one.
Not Another Day of Sun. It's another day of sun. Well,
No.
Well, I was going to say, so it's great that you thought about that. I was going to say there's definitely an explanation why it kind of forgets it's a musical. Because for me, as you said, life gets in the way. So at first, it's all like charming and magical, and they meet cute, or do you say meet cute, like 3 times. And so it's all like sunny, and the colors are so bright as well. So you've got the songs, you've got the colors are bright, and then suddenly they start dating, and then life gets in the way, and they start drifting apart because he joins that band. And I don't know if you noticed, but even the filters become a bit greenish and kind of muted. She starts wearing clothes are just navy and white. She doesn't have those really colorful dresses anymore. And they start singing. They stop singing. They stop. He gets into that jazz band, and he has to change the kind of type of genre. He was very traditionalist originally, and now he has to do some kind of fusion jazz. And I think it's because, life gets in the way. They're not that happy anymore together. And that's why they don't really sing anymore. And that's why at the end, with the epilogue and the what if and the fairy tale, what would have happened between them two, then suddenly everything flares again. It's like fanfarish. And, it's.
I mean, I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about the ending. But for me, that whole fairy tale what if moment, it goes on just long enough to make you forget about the reality that we're returning back to. Yeah. But funnily enough, I think my favorite song is Somewhere in the Crowd. I think that's a really great kind of big number. Yeah, the second one.
Okay.
Just for the way it kind of goes through from the room, and it's kind of a bit of an ensemble song as well, and then gets to the party. And all her roommates as well are now pretty big actresses.
So who are they?
It's Callie Hernandez, who was in Alien Covenant and The Endless, and something else recently.
Is it her in Blair Witch? The
Blair Witch, yeah.
Yeah, the remake of Blair Witch.
Jessica Roth,
why are they doing that? Sorry.
That's terrible. Jessica Roth, who's the lead in the Happy Death Day movies.
Okay.
And then Sonia Mizuno, who's in Ex Machina and Maniac, the Alex Garland and the other Emma Stone thing. So, yeah, there's a good supporting cast in here.
So I don't think that this is as good as Whiplash. I don't think this is that good a musical generally, but there's so many things about this which I really did like more so the second time than the first time. The first time I watched it, I was like almost like not angry, but I was just like, what's going on
really
exactly?
Disappointed.
What's going on exactly? And I don't really get it. And I do actually like your explanations about how it kind of real life gets in the way and it kind of dissipates, the kind of musical kind of thing dissipates. And I was kind of annoyed that they're playing on the kind of trope of like, let's play up old style Hollywood to make a film that everyone will get behind in Hollywood and be Mr. Super Awards season baiting type of film. So that kind of thing got in my way. But then there's things like, I didn't know anything about this film, but then I saw that poster, which is the classic one of Emma in the yellow dress and Ryan Gosling, and at the top in the Hollywood Hills.
Yeah.
The main poster is super saturated with the purple background. But when I saw that image, I was like, fuck. That looks outstanding, and the film does look great all the way through. And the Somewhere in the Crowd, where they have the primary colours of the girls dancing and things like that, it kind of really pulls you through. I don't think any of the songs are really that good. Apart from my favourite song is the audition one, which I think is just genuinely like a really good song and how it's played. But in terms, I hate City of Stars. I think that's such a boring song for me.
That's kind of the obvious. Let's put this forward for best song Oscar.
But I don't see why it is that, because I think the audition song is so much different and a different kind of way of playing on a song.
I wonder if it was just because it's both of them in it, maybe, like for the reprise version. I don't know.
Because the City of Stars, the main kind of it's just going up a scale and back again. Not that interesting. Ryan Gosling doesn't sing it that well. The lyrics aren't that interesting. So it's just like, why is this the lead song for this when there's like...
It's no Shallows.
Shallows is horrific. Shallows is really bad.
Great song.
Shallows is like it's good for like a minute and a half, and then it's like there's no song to this.
Just she goes, oh.
Yeah, it's just like going la 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 for
Yeah.
3 minutes. I'm like, why is this a song? Again, the best song in that was the last song, which should have been put forward as from my point of view. But yeah, so that I don't know, this is me like picking the song which they should have put forward for Oxford. But that audition song, I love the story and I love the way it plays. You see her doing the audition, the lights going down, the spotlight coming on her, it kind of floating around her, and starting from talking into a song, which is something you just don't see that much.
Yeah,
and
totally.
that's why it kind of took me more.
Yeah.
But for me, like Whiplash is better as just an song.
Whiplash is super, super tight. Like I love it.
Yeah.
I think with this, for me, it hits really personal because I think what it is some of the things it says. It's kind of arguments, getting steady paid work versus selling out. If you're doing something as a compromise to your own values with the eventual goal of bankrolling your dream, at what point do you realize you've been doing the former for too long? And I think it really expresses the fear of not knowing if you're able to see that you're not good enough or not, which is a really weird way of saying that. But like that's something Emma Stone's character reckons with when she goes back home.
Or not being able to see that you are good enough, but you just have to wait for your wait for it wrong.
And I think it's quite clever that a film packages itself as this kind of Oscar contender and this feel-good musical, and what it really is kind of these people trying to work out what it is they can sacrifice. And for someone who's trying to make it in something creative here, like I feel a lot like, not getting too personal, but I feel like I'm constantly worrying, like, have I sacrificed or have I mislaid, health, finance, relationships, all sort of things in pursuit of something, whether it's going to be worth it. And I think this kind of shows two sides of that from her and from him. And I think it's great that I think an easy ending for this film would be that they end up together. I think an easier ending would be that they end up together and get what they want. Maybe not easy ending, more of a cop-out ending. But I think it's harder for it to actually have a mainstream film that shows that they don't end up together. They kind of get what they want, but and the moment at the end when they recognize that they've helped each other get there, I think so powerful. And it's that thing of, this is what it is, very much the meaning of bittersweet ending, where they've got what they want, but at what cost?
I think you say the cop-out ending would have been that, but I think they did do the cop-out ending where they showed what happened and then, hey guys, this is what you could have won, kind of thing. And I think that's.
You don't like it?
No, not at all.
The ending was the only bit that I did think was actually quite good. But then the reason it didn't work for me is because I didn't believe in any future for the relationship to begin with, because they're both ultimately too kind of focused or selfish about the things that they wanted. So for me, watching it, there was nothing to begin with for me to kind of invest in. And then when obviously the cracks did start to show, it was like, well, this was obviously going to happen. And then it kind of does that classic thing where the woman puts her life on hold so the man can be achieving his dreams or goals and things. And she sets him up with that whole idea, which we see all the time. So then when it did do the ending where it was, this is what it could have been. And the way that was done was really interesting and more kind of in like a musical genre, which I like. Kind of annoyed me more that what they'd done there, if they kind of had stretched out everything I got from that for the whole film, then I would have enjoyed it more. And I do get the whole thing with the colours and how it starts off being kind of fancy and magical with it being the musicals. But I just didn't buy them both.
I agree with you in that I didn't. The fact they first time they met each other was on the freeway stroke motorway, met quote unquote. The second time was that fleeting part in the jazz club when he just got fired, and the third time was at the party. Those three are non-event meetings.
Yeah, and
that's
no romance
so it's hard. It's hard for me to buy that. But what I did really like is bypass that and they're in a relationship. They're both in a creative industry, which is something I think about. Well, it must happen all the times where two people are starting off from a place. They're both trying to do something, and do we stay together or do we do our own thing? And I don't quite agree with you in that she put her job on hold because she was still doing her thing. It's just that he had to travel to do his thing, but she was in the exact same place. She was in the exact right place for her to do her thing, and that's why she did get the gig was because she was in the right place and did put the show on, even though no one came to see it apart from this casting director. But I did like that struggle of like, and it must happen with bands on stage. Bands go touring and they leave the other one behind, or even with like Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, they were both doing different films, and that's why couples separate. It's a tough situation. I didn't buy them as a couple, maybe because of Crazy Stupid Love, where I'm like, well, these guys are great together. This is the best film for them.
Do you think the scene in the cinema where they meet up, that's like the best non-sex sex scene in ages?
Which one?
Like when they meet up in the cinema,
I love it. Now, but for me, I buy everything there is in that film because I relate to it a lot. So basically, I was in love with someone that was much more focused on his career, and he always told me, the thing is, I want to move to LA, and he wanted to be a film producer. So I was like, we can't really settle down together because I want to be in LA. So I have that, and that happened after La La Land as well. So afterwards, what else? There's so many things that relate. Like there's what else?
Did you go to the Griffith Observatory and fly as well?
No, unfortunately we didn't. But the good enough passage is very much something that I relate to as well, because
explain the good enough passage.
So when she's outside her house, she goes back home, because a one woman show was a flop, and she's so devastated that she tried and see, you say that you don't think that she plays really well. For me, I think she's excellent in every single audition that she has, because she gets interrupted all the time. And for example, the first one, when she's on the phone and she's trying to go into that really emotional piece, and they just say, oh, can I have a sandwich or something? Like, I find everything hilarious in that film. I like all the lines, I like all the conversations as well when they meet, and you think that there's no chemistry between them, whereas I think there's a lot of chemistry. And also, I've got some friends who hated each other at first, and now they're together, they've got a baby. So for me, I've seen that as well with people, that don't particularly like each other. But the good enough bit, it's she goes home and he comes back to get her, because the one woman show, a casting director was there and actually noticed her. So they want to see her. And he goes there, he doesn't have a way to contact her. So he actually drives all the way to Nevada to find her. And he says, you got an audition tomorrow and you have to come, And she said, no, I can't do it. I can't take it anymore. I can't be rejected again like this. And maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not, And for me, it happens to me in dating. So for example, I've been on so many dates, and it never works. And you're like, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe, and you want to quit. And that's something that really relates to me as well. So I've got everything in the film really touched me. And also you said that, that you don't find the songs really rememberable. That I really actually like that they don't have perfect voices and that they're not perfect dancers, because I find it much more relatable. When I see, like really big numbers, the Hollywood numbers, and actually, it's too perfect. I don't like when I go and see a musical, on Shaftesbury Avenue, and they have like crystal clear voices that could break glasses.
Well, this film's not one of those, but
exactly.
It's kind of marketed as if it is, or a lot of people went to it thinking it was.
So maybe they were disappointed
because, like,
for that.
he's not Fred Astaire, obviously, and it's like, I think it is very tongue in cheek, and the duet dance they have on the hillside, I think they play into the fact that they're just cocking about, and it's like, but it's still choreographed just enough that it can be essentially
that dance. I really do love that dance, and the whole setup into the tap bit where they're not tapping that well, but they're kind of tapping enough, and they're doing that kind of little skip steps, and like, and it's not like Singing in the Rain where you're just like, oh fucking hell.
Exactly.
First, I've only seen Singing in the Rain once, and I was just kind of literally blown away by what people did like way back when. I'm thinking, well, they're the best.
That's a particular type of showbiz entertainment. Those things,
So I do get the music. I do get that they're not supposed to be perfect song-wise, but I just think Ryan Gosling's voice
the singing. I mean, the singing is kind of
what it is.
Yeah, it is. It is what it is, and the parts in it when she is doing the audition, she's amazing. But outside of that, she's just not the kind of Emma Stone that I've seen elsewhere, because I think she's great and I will watch her in pretty much anything. But there's just something about this performance that
irked you.
Yeah, it didn't have the magic.
Yeah, whereas for me, it has the magic. So it's funny because when I went into that film and I saw it and I came out of it, I couldn't fathom that anyone couldn't like the film.
Sure.
Like it's never happened to me where, you know, you watch a film and you're like, oh yeah. I mean, the only people that I thought might not like it is people that hate musicals. So I've got a friend who hates any musical.
I think we
love
all
them
we
so
all have
much
friends
that-
who hate musicals.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought, yes, okay, maybe I wouldn't recommend that. But to anyone else, for me, it's almost like when someone tells me they didn't like it, it's like a stab in my heart, because it's as if they were attacking my personality or everything that
So
I believe in. Or,
you've had quite a few stabs here tonight.
Oh, but on Twitter as well, so many people attacked me about it. So, you know, I'm used to it. But
So before we go into the scores, this was the source of one of the biggest Oscar controversies, like in recent times. Do you think it should have won the Best Picture of that year?
for me, yes. Especially that I saw Moonlight afterwards.
Yeah.
And as I thought, you'd better be good to win the bloody Oscar, because, you know, and I was very disappointed by
Really?
Moonlight, yeah.
Oh, I love Moonlight. I think Moonlight's an incredibly deserving winner, and I'm glad it did. Like, I think this doesn't really need like to have Oscar winners stamped on it as well.
Sure.
I think because it is so secretly subversive from what it's trying to do. I think they really have smuggled in quite a strange film into the Oscar race, and it's because of the, you know, the stars and the talent behind it. But I think what it's doing, like you said, if you're not a fan of musicals, you won't like it, and I think if you are a fan of musicals, you won't like it. I think is a very specific, narrow field for people who will really connect with it. Either you will really connect with the characters like we have, or you will kind of like what they're doing with the form. But if you go in thinking, where's my Fred Astaire, you'll hate it. If you just hate songs anyway, you'll be turned off from the start, because that's where they hit you hard with it. Yeah. So it's a strange one. Like I think it should have swept up like elsewhere, you know, but it went in with too much cred, and especially following Whiplash as well.
I think, I was happy that Moonlight won over this. I thought Moonlight was like astonishing, and for such a small, unassuming film, the way I'd left, I was kind of sat in my seat for a minute or so, just that someone taking. Well, I'm not going to spoil it at the end. I was just like, oh right, oh fuck.
Well, back when we thought the Oscars might be doing the right picks for a while, and then
What were your thoughts, Moonlight versus? Have you seen Moonlight?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. So the opposite happened at the end of Moonlight. I was there in the cinema and I was like, wow, that was amazing. And I think it was important that Moonlight won over La La Land. And the way it happened just kind of summed up kind of the Oscars as it is, that it is this kind of like absurd parade anyway. And, you know, what wins, what happens, what gets remembered is really kind of insignificant in the end. But I think it was important that it won. But yeah, maybe we'll get to do Moonlight in a future pod.
Should we head to scores, or do you have any other points to make?
I just wanted to say Moonlight, I think, as you said, it's important that it won. But I think I'm reading Bret Easton Ellis' White.
What, sorry?
Bret Easton Ellis is White, you know, so it's his non-fiction book about his ideologies, his ideas, his reviews of film, and he's actually talking about Moonlight, and he says that as a gay person, he really didn't relate to it, and he thought it was kind of a poor film. I think it's stunning, but I think it's so subdued, and I thought that it would be. I mean, the ending, I'm not going to spoil it, but I was just like, oh, it's just that. It just ends like this. It's just so climatic, you know? And people were like, yeah, maybe it just deserves, you know, tenderness. It's not necessarily sex that he wants or something, but you can have both, you know? And it's stunning. The score is absolutely stunning, but it's devoid for me of really strong emotions, you know? And the love story is so... Yeah, it's inconsequent for me. So I was very, very disappointed. But I think everyone's got their different values and their different...
absolutely. I mean, for me, Call Me By Your Name, it's in your number 3.
Yeah.
But I didn't really rate it.
I see.
Because I didn't really buy the relationship. I loved everything else about it.
Yeah.
Loved Italy. Loved the way it was portrayed. Loved the soundtrack. Loved the actors. Loved everything. But I was just like, these two really? Are these guys? Are they into each other? Is that what's happening here?
See, I think we just need more films and more stories about like the gay experience and stuff, because it isn't all one thing. Like Bret Easton Ellis might not like relate to Moonlight, but he might relate to another, and it's like one thing isn't one thing. So I think the more stories we have, the more, because you know there's so many stories from everywhere else.
And I do watch a lot of them, God's Own Country, and I love.
Well,
we're talking about young directors, and I will talk about this. You know, the Xavier Dolan. Do you know the Xavier Dolan?
No.
So he's from Quebec. And he was in the Cannes jury, invited there. He's very, very rated in France. He's adored in France. And he's done like 5 or 6 films. One of them is in English speaking, and there's Kit Harington and Natalie Portman, Susan Sarandon. It's called the Death and Life of John F. Donovan.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But it's not as good as the other films. But because he's queer, he does a lot of films about gay people and.
He's super young as well, isn't he?
He's super young.
He's like,
well,
let's talk
like Damien Chazelle.
Well, let's talk about this now before we get into the scores, because I think we are in a really kind of prime period now. Damien Chazelle, Barry Jenkins, Marielle Heller.
Yeah. I wrote a few, actually. I wrote Damien Chazelle and Xavier Dolan. I wrote Ryan Coogler.
Yeah.
I wrote Jordan Peele.
Yes, absolutely.
Very interesting guy. Greta Gerwig.
Yeah. So these are like people they've had 2 or 3 like strong films. I mean, whether you like La La Land or not, it's still like highly regarded. You're just like, this is like a fertile period for these guys, and there seems to be money going in there, and there seems to be the support for people to do these kind of films where you think they're taking risks and they're interesting.
Especially for Netflix. I was reading today an article that Netflix are really investing in young directors.
Yeah, I've got a few like Robert Eggers with The Witch and the Lighthouse. And then a lot of debut filmmakers, actually. Rose Glass, who did Saint Maud, which is coming out later this year. I saw it at London last year, and that's a really great kind of dark psychological horror. Joe Talbot, who did The Last Black Man in San Francisco, really fantastic. And Lulu Wang for The Farewell. And
The Farewell, I saw that last weekend. That was blinding.
And
but I didn't include it because she's had one. And
these
there's
are
a lot about.
You've got to make at least 2.
Yeah.
Ari Aster.
I love
These are a lot of ones. Like Riley Stearns, I really like. He did a film called Faults a few years ago with Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and his new one, The Art of Self-Defense, with Jesse Eisenberg, was really, really great. He's really kind of nailed in on weird, idiosyncratic, like dark comedy dramas. Because Faults is kind of about this woman who's indoctrinated in a cult, and a guy snatches her out and tries to deprogram her in a hotel room, and it comes a power play of who's deprogramming who kind of thing. And The Art of Self-Defense is a very, very funny and very dark kind of take on toxic masculinity of this guy, Jesse Eisenberg, who just wants to feel less helpless, and so joins a karate class, and there's some weird people involved there, and it's all about kind of taking back your manhood and stuff, and deconstructs that whole thing. So he's really interesting as well. But there's tons of new people
out there.
A lot of new stuff, a lot of exciting stuff out there. Ooh. Right, let's head to the scores now.
Hello, I'm Sam Pay.
And I'm Martin Zotz-Orstwick.
And together we host a show called Song by Song, where we deal with the music of Tom Waits. We've been going since 2015. Every week we talk about a new track. We've made our way through 15 seasons so far of his music.
And now we're going back to the early years. And if you haven't listened to Tom Waits before, it's not the growly stuff. It's not the stuff where he's hitting an automobile with a bone for percussion. It's a nice, easy way into his music.
If that sounds like something you would be interested in, you should check out our website, songbysongpodcast.com, or put Song by Song into your podcatcher of choice.
And as we always do, we start off with the recommendability. Scores are all out of 5, and you may have decimal places if you wish. And we'll start with you, Amelie, because you chose it.
Okay, so recommendability. For me, because I absolutely adore it, I would give it 5, of course. But if I take into account people that don't like musicals, for example, and also the backlash of it, and realizing that loads of people didn't like it, as many people as maybe a bit more people liked it that disliked it, but there are some people that really disliked it. Yeah. So I would say 4.
Are there any comments in the backlash that you kind of can take on board, that you can accept in their?
Well, the thing is, I will always kind of flip it, saying, for example, I understand that people were disappointed about the dancing numbers or the singing numbers not being exceptional, and I understand that. So you don't like Ryan, right, as a person, like as a character. I mean, you don't like it. Whereas me, I don't mind it at all. There's the people who say, oh, yeah, he's like the guy when you go on a date and he tried to mansplain you. And me, I was like, that would be the same. Even if I was a man, like if I am passionate about something, I'd be like, right, rock music, I'm going to tell you about it. It would be the same, So for me, it's not a problem. And also, I've got a friend as well. She brought up the fact that she didn't like that Emma Stone forgot about her friends halfway through the film. So at first, she's
I'd forgotten about them.
Yeah, so she's...
They're at her show, they're there.
Yeah, but she's like, she's not really sticking with her friends anymore. Now we see just a relationship. And I was like, yeah, but that's life.
Yeah,
that's
life.
what happens to most people.
she moves out.
And that's the story they're telling. They're not telling about Emma Stone and her friends.
Yeah.
It's like Emma Stone and Ryan.
Yeah.
So what? So 4. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it depends. If me personally, I would give it 5. But
the fact you'll put lots of caveats in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Matt.
Yeah, I'm similar. Like, because I really love it as much as you, Emily. When I came out, I was thinking like, wow, this is really something. And then as the years have gone on, I've realized this is really divisive. And every time I hear more views on it, I'm just like, wow, this really does either work or not work in a fundamental way that kind of breaks the experience for a lot of people. So I definitely recommend it still, like to see. But yeah, with whether you're a musical fan or everything else going in, I'd say a 4 as well.
Helen.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess whether you like musicals or not is debatable what you're going to get out of this, because it's not musical in a musical sense. So, give it a go, whatever.
No, it's true. It's true.
But yeah, there's always been kind of films that kind of do come along every now and again, and we hadn't had one for a while that has been so divisive. Yeah. And it's really interesting that no one is sort of kind of the, I kind of thought it was all right.
Yeah, no one.
I
think I was most in that camp.
Oh, really?
Because there's bits I realised, but bits I was like, not for me.
Yeah.
But come on.
Yeah, I mean, just for me, I was just disappointed in the talent, and I don't know. I don't think it doesn't hard. 2.5 down the middle.
So how much of it is the weight of expectation being so high?
Well, I've got over that. I've got over that
Crazy
now.
Stupid Love and liking Whiplash.
So that was the initial thing, and then rewatching it. I mean, Ryan Gosling's character, it's just really terrible. It's not just the mansplaining. You kind of never really feel like you get to know him, and he just doesn't seem particularly warm to me. Oh. And I kind of, from the start, it's like she's just so much more better than he is, and she kind of deserves that. I kind of wanted her to get to the point where, they broke up sooner so that she can achieve her full potential quicker, because it is the moments where she's on her own and in the audition that she's the best for me. And the kind of fluff around the musical bits in the background, because I didn't think it was doing anything particularly new with a musical style genre. I was kind of like, well, I'm get on with that, carry on with the story and see where it goes. So then for it to kind of flip the ending and do the, this is what could have been, and they both come at those points where they like reach that point where they're at their best. That was kind of the most interesting thing.
So what did you guys make of the breakup scene where she's come back from the audition, it's gone amazingly well, she's puts out that club banger of a song, and she's the one that says, what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they broke up at that time anyway, because but she says, I will always love you, and he says, I will always love you. And I've got loads of friends that say, because when I was rewatching the film for podcast prep, I posted a little video on Instagram and I said perfection about the epilogue, and then a friend was like, no, it's the worst ending, because loads of people wanted them to end up together.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And for me, I always say, but I think if they had ended up together, it would just have been like a normal rom-com. And the fact that there's this epilogue, it kind of elevates it to a masterpiece, because there's the whole what if epilogue going through, and the fact that, at the end, they look at each other, and as you said, they kind of say, thank you for having, it's, the nod. For me, it's like...
I think it's quite clear that they're not meant for each other.
Yeah.
And the quicker they realise that...
Yeah, it's nice. It's kind of like, well, look where we are, and thank you for coming to visit me.
Yeah, but I do think that they still love each other, and that they still have that kind of, what if we had stayed together? But I think both of them have achieved what they wanted, and they're really happy with their lives anyway.
But it's why the here's what you could have won fantasy ending is a fantasy, because this wouldn't have happened probably, and this is just you two projecting whoever's point of view that whole bit is from. It's just like the last bit of a dream, because in reality even that probably wouldn't have happened because they weren't right.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm actually going to go higher than you guys. The only people I wouldn't recommend this to is people who don't like musicals, because I think there is no way to determine, based on what we've said here, there's no way to determine whether someone's going to like it or not. So, so the only people I would say, no, you're not going to like it, are people who are against musicals. Otherwise, I'm like, fine, just have a go. Have a go.
Yeah, okay.
So I tend to score based on how many caveats, and that would be my only caveat.
Yeah, okay.
So 4.5, I'm going to put for recommendability. Mm-hmm. Amelie, repeat viewing.
I've probably seen it. So I saw it 5 times at the cinema.
Oh, seriously?
Look at Helen's face. Yes, I saw it 5 times at the cinema.
That's like 10 hours spent at the cinema with this film.
Yeah.
This begs another question. How many times have you seen? What's the most you've seen one film at the cinema?
That was La La Land.
Yeah.
5 times.
What record did it break?
Probably Fight Club 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. For me, I think it's a Wonderful Life because I do it every Christmas at the
Sure.
Prince Charles. Oh, I missed it. I missed it last year. I missed it the year before last. Did it last year, so I've done it 4 times now. But I think at time of release, it would have been like Return of the King, or actually,
Imagine 3 hours.
3 times, yeah.
or, yeah, that's a lot of time. Or Force Awakens. Actually, I did that like midnight screening 2 days later, and then over Christmas with my parents. So it was like a lot going on there. So that was 3 in very quick succession. But overall, Wonderful Life, and that number will only continue to grow, I think.
Yeah, I've seen It's Wonderful Life at the Prince Charles, and it's delightful. Have you seen films more than once at the cinema?
I think the only film that I've seen more than once at the cinema is the first Avengers film.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Why did you choose that one? Have you seen all the Marvel films?
I haven't seen them all. I've seen most of them. But yeah, I just ended up going to see it twice because I had so much fun the first time.
Oh, okay.
Someone was like, "Do you want to go and see it?" And I was like, "I've already seen it, but yeah, I'll go and see it."
Yeah. It is a weird concept for non-cinephiles, isn't it? I tell people, I went to see Star Wars again, and like, what? When did you see it last time? Oh, like 3 days ago. So why did you go and see it again? Because it was Ace, and I'm not going to get that same experience. Well, for me, it's like I'm not going to get that same experience at home. And I don't tend to watch those bigger films at home because I just can't recreate it.
A couple I wish that I had seen more times, but just purely because it was on like for a week and you saw it once and then it had gone again.
Disappears again.
The opportunity.
I think I've started doing that more. Like now that the impetus to own something is a bit less because of streaming, I just try and see something I like as much as I can while it's out. So I saw Knives Out when it was out, and I just went and saw it again, like on a late night screening not long ago. I've seen Little Women twice since it's been out. I saw The Lighthouse at a preview screening in December, but I'll see that again when it's out. So there's a lot more like new stuff that when I really like, I'll be like, you know what, I enjoy it most in the big screen experience, so I'll try and do that a lot. And then probably either not see it again for ages or, it'll be a while probably.
Yeah, I think I've done a few of the Star Wars, all of the main Avengers, apart from Endgame, because I just felt that was a bit too long.
Yeah, it's quite long.
That's the only one I saw twice, actually.
But all the others I've seen, certainly since like Iron Man 3, I've seen those twice in the cinema. But it's quite an interesting phenomenon as to who goes to see these films more than once. So, sorry, repeat viewing, you've seen this about 5 times. What is your thought?
And I've seen it 5 times, and now I probably saw it 5 or 6 times since then. So I would put 5. For me, I can watch it over and over and over again. And the thing is, now I don't think that it's adding more to my experience, but I know that the first 5 times, for example, I would discover more and more details, and and I would interpret it a bit more in depth. And I even read an article recently about the primary colors, and I already had noticed this, but I was like, so apparently yellow is the, what do you say, foreboding? Or,
sense of foreboding.
Foreboding, yes, foreboding of change. And because, you see there's like the neon and blue and the red neons in their rooms, so they're together. And they were saying blue is creativity. So it's always when they're creative, he's got a blue suit, And then the red would be when they're anchored back into reality a bit more. There's something happening that prevents their creativity. So every time I was like, oh, and there's that into, I think it's so rich that I gain a lot.
Matthew?
I've seen it 4 times now, so quite a lot. And I do just love seeing it and letting it play out. And I think I do admire the craft of it more every time. Like I think if you watch, I think the second that the end appears on screen, it clicks in onto the 2-hour mark. So it's a very clean 2-hour movie. I've seen it a whole bunch. Probably see it a lot more. 4.3.
Helen?
I'm not going to revisit this. And I was kind of hoping that watching it again would redeem itself in a bit more way, and that I might have had enough time to kind of get over the initial sort of it's not Whiplash amazing, but it still just didn't really grab me, so I'm not going to go back one.
But when you suggested it, I was like, I don't really want to see this again. But I was super surprised at how much I did enjoy it watching it a second time. And the reason I asked about where you guys saw it as well, because I hate that screen, that Leicester Square Odeon. I really, really hate that particular screen. I think the room's too big, the screen's too small.
Yeah, it is a small screen.
It's just like the sound, every time I've seen a film, I mean, that's where I saw Call Me By Your Name, which didn't resonate with. I saw Shape of Water there, LFF didn't resonate with that. And I've never had fun in that particular screening room for whatever reason. I saw La La Land in a different Odeon, which is close to my house, which has a similar kind of thing. It just doesn't feel like the right kind of space to see it. I think that does have a massive kind of effect in it. So I wasn't considering watching it. And I was surprised at how well, even in a smaller scenario, in my more intimate setting, I enjoyed it more than I did do
at the cinema.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I will watch it again, not often, maybe once every like 4 or 5 years, probably. So I'm going to give it 2.8, I think.
It's very precise.
Small screen score, Amelie.
I gave it a 4 because I think that it's a film that needs to be seen at the cinema. I mean, it completely transfers well onto a smaller screen, but I think that it's such an experience in terms of colors, in terms of, and plus it's in CinemaScope, and it says it at the beginning.
Yeah.
And you're gonna laugh because the first time I saw the first scene, though, the big ensemble thing.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I hope it's not gonna be like that the whole film, because I'm not gonna like this, because it was too much for me. But now I really enjoyed that kind of first number. But for me, and when you ask what screen I had seen it, I was at the front row, so that was good when Ryan Gosling showed up. But honestly, I was like that. I couldn't really see what was happening on the screen.
Sure.
But then, because I saw it 5 times at the cinema, I really, really enjoyed it at the cinema. So, but I still think it looks stunning. And I still think you can see the virtuosity of the camera moves. I think, it's so fluid, the way that he follows the character and the dancers and then the palm trees. I love this, like a waltz. And I think it translates very well on screen, so on small screen.
Matt?
I think it's definitely like a big screen film, but I think if you've got the right setup and a big enough TV, it's gonna pretty much match it. Because there are certain films I found, I think it's mainly like the IMAX ones, like say Gravity or Dunkirk. You were saying earlier about Dunkirk. It's they're ones where I'm almost reluctant to ever just watch it on my TV.
Sure.
Especially want something like Gravity, which is kind of like an experience film, and I guess 1917 now as well.
Yeah.
It's like it's
It's
not
interested in watching 1917.
It's amazing.
It's not
Gravity in 1917. I've never wanted to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain. I mean, 1917 is very much not a gimmick film, but there's a certain style involved, and I think that's going to get lost if you shrink it down. So I think this isn't as severe, and it works fine. 4.1.
Helen.
So I just talk about cinemas. So I saw this at Screen One at Ritzy, which has the nice curtains and that kind of old Hollywoody feel. I think this benefits massively from being seen on a big screen, specifically for the colours. And I felt the opening scene on a smaller screen felt really cramped and claustrophobic.
Yeah.
And even particularly like the one at the pool party as well felt really claustrophobic and really like spinny and not in a good way on the screen for me. So I'm gonna give it 2. I think this is definitely one that you should seek out and see on a big screen if you're gonna for a first time at least.
First time,
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm going to give it a high score because I did enjoy it more on the small screen as discussed. But I think I still, for a film that's not special effects laden, I was super excited to see them doing a tap dance scene in Hollywood Hills with the in the magic hour time.
Yeah.
And it almost kind of annoys me when you see the posters where they've made the background like super purple, so the yellow really pops out, because I don't think it needs that, because when they're doing it live, it just looks like spectacular. But I say that kind of fades more and more as you go through the film. There's less and less of that kind of pop to it. So I think it does work on a small screen. But I kind of agree with you guys that I think ideally if you can see it only once or the first time seeing a cinema, not the screen that I saw it the first time. So I'm going to give it 4 as well. Engagement score, Amelie.
Well, I would say 5 because for me, it just grabs me. It's visceral for me. You know, I just I'm completely gripped and stuck to the screen. So I would say 5 for me.
Matt.
I'm going to go pretty high, 4.9. Like it gets me every time, and it speaks a lot to me actually, and it's got me basically. It's either I think it varies, either it's got you or it's not, and it has. So,
Helen, it's not got you.
It's not got me.
No, it doesn't get her now.
I think for its runtime, there's a bit in it where it just really, really dragged for me. I was going to give it a 3.
Oh, okay, so more than I thought.
Yeah.
But I mean, I stuck with it again.
The engagement score. I don't know. Whilst watching it, I was enjoying it, but I think you can kind of check out. For me, I think you can I don't feel you need to be in it. One thing we're talking about the soundtrack. So I do love a musical, and if I like a musical, I'll go and download the soundtrack on Spotify, and it'll be like the thing I listen to for the next few weeks, like genuinely.
Yeah.
When when Spotify does your tracks of the year, last year was, and the year before was Hamilton, twice in a row, just like Hamilton, followed by other musicals I'd seen both on TV on the thing. But this was just like, I'd skip forward to that audition song, and then that would be the song that I really wanted to kind of dive into. So I think with that as well, I feel I can kind of wax and wane with this. So I'm going for 2.3, and that gives us an overall score of 3.58750.
Still did quite well.
Yeah.
Still well, yeah. Yeah, whereas the score, me, I listen to it all the time. And it's been it was out 2016, so 17?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's probably still in my most listened to tracks. So,
did Spotify call it for you at all?
If it calls me, what do you mean?
Did Spotify put it on your most played songs?
Yeah, I think so.
Did they?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, guys, so let's head to Twitter, and this is probably one of the biggest responses, at least interaction. I think, Amelie, you've been pumping people up.
No, not at all, honestly.
No, because
I retweeted it.
Yeah, you've been responding to people.
Let's just say people feel very passionate about this film.
Yeah.
We always do this. So for each episode, we'll put a shout out on Twitter. So in this case, we're reviewing La La Land with the Oni Cleo Luna and Matt Brothers 2. Have you seen it? Tell us your thoughts for an on-air shout out, and there'll be a little GIF as well, so they'll be easy to find. So Amelie, if you'd like to read the first one out for us.
Of course. So Liam, who is the co-host of the Spocklight podcast with Matt, replied, beautifully crafted musical that both homages and passages the genre while bringing an added emotional rawness. Vibrant visuals plus a joyous score make this stunningly entertaining, but in the end, this inspiringly honest tale of struggling artist broke my heart.
5 stars.
5 stars, yeah.
We're not going to go into the comments, guys, but there's quite a few comments and re-comments back from maybe Amelie stoking the fire each time.
No, I just reply to people most of the time.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of comments back with each of these tweets. So guys, thanks a lot for this one. Matt, do you want to take a second one?
It's from Lee Thomas at Lee Thomas 5. He says, love it. It got a lot of backlash from its own hype. The songs and choreography are terrific and it's stunningly shot. 4.5 stars.
Okay. Helen.
This one's for Screen and Country, a BFI podcast. 5 stars. I will accept no less.
Well, a little comment from Amelie. Me neither. So the next one is...
Eleanor.
Yeah, Amelie.
So she's Liam's girlfriend, right? Fiancée.
Yes, and co-host of the Bygones podcast.
That's it. So she said, to me, it's a love letter to a bygone age of Hollywood that also examines a pretty big life question. What should you compromise to follow a dream? Gorgeous colors, magical moments with an ending that was so emotionally devastating. I was absolutely in bits when the credits rolled. She didn't give the stars, did she?
No, she didn't give it stars, but I would
we
give
should
it.
have put
I
it in.
imagine
She
it'd be
said,
quite.
I still listen to the podcast, to the music on a semi-regular basis.
I'd imagine that'd be quite high. Matt.
Inside Oz podcast says, loved it. Tricky follow-up to Whiplash, but sets itself apart from everything else around at the time and clearly made by someone who loves old cinema. Steered clear of the cliche ending. Sometimes people just aren't meant to end up together. 4 stars. Could have been 5, but I didn't find Ryan Gosling's character likable. He's a fine actor, but didn't do it for me in this.
Helen.
Oh, this is a good one for me. So this is from Movie Reviews in 20 Qs podcast. Overrated. Production values are great, but lack substance and tried to make up for that by dwelling on old Hollywood nostalgia. Gosling is good, but Emma Stone's character is insanely unlikable. 2 stars.
It's interesting who, if you pick one as your favourite, who you side on. Because Gosling, I'd say, is the one that's the least likable in terms of mansplaining and like.
Yeah, that's what people say normally.
Yeah.
I think they're liking J.K. Simmons for firing him at Christmas.
Amelie.
Yes, so someone else replied and said, seconding Sam's comment, but flip-flop Emma and Ryan, get out of here with your jazz, Ryan. So they hate Ryan. And they say, what's your rating? And he says 2.5 as well. He says, I'll save 1.5 for Tree Garbage like Joker.
Well, I mean, the Oscars would beg
Shots
to differ.
fired.
Matt.
The contrarians say, not sure what's worse, that I find the relationship bland and superficial, or that I find the songs and choreography unmemorable, save 1. Fantastic ending, though, and really the only reason I think it may be worth watching. 3 out of 5.
And then this follows a thread about Tom Everett Scott, who plays Emma Stone's character's husband in the flashback sequence. Well, in True Life. But you didn't know about this guy, did you?
So no, I know Tom Everett Scott because I've seen That Thing You Do. I've seen An American Werewolf in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had seen loads of films, but I couldn't remember That Thing You Do, and I couldn't remember the aspect of him being obsessed with jazz.
Sure.
So it was apparently quite funny that he was cast, as Emma Stone's husband.
Helen.
So this one is from Stephen. It's the greatest musical of all time, with 2 incredible lead performances, and of its Oscar wins, it deserved leading actress, director, and cinematography the most, and they give it 5 stars. I don't think it's the greatest musical of all time. I don't think it's even close.
And that's at Stephen Morrish, because there's lots of people called Stephen in the world, just to sing it out. But Amelie.
So this is Elle Latoya, who is at Franglais27. She said, absolutely loved it as another brilliant film by Damien Chazelle. It is a bittersweet technicolor homage to French musicals, as well as being a love letter to Hollywood, steeped in nostalgia, and encourages its audiences to dream. It provides a magical journey into the lives of a couple of dreamers with the technical brilliance and levels of obsession on display as typical hallmarks of a Chazelle film with a captivating score.
Well, that's Justin Hurwitz. All his scores are on point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many stars?
And she says, it's 4.5 stars.
Nice. Thank you so much, guys, for your comments there. And there is lots more comments which we didn't read out there because it's quite a long thread.
Yeah.
So do find us. Just type in Flixwatcher, La La Land, and you'll see all the comments related to that. So, guys, can you sign off by telling us where we can find you online? And say sayonara, goodbye, adios, muchachos to people who's listening. Yeah.
So you can find me at The Only Clear Luna, and also on the podcast Fatal Attractions. So you can find us at Fatal Attract Pod.
Mm-hmm. You can find me on Twitter at MattBrothers2 and Spocklight at Spocklight Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and we're on Facebook as well.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks for coming on.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
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 Enjoyed this episode of Flixwatcher podcast? Why not leave us a 5-star review on iTunes? You can also follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter, and we're at FlixWatcher on Instagram. Thanks as always to the mighty people for their mighty tunes, and Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills. If you're looking to get your podcast edited as sweet as this, get in touch with Ben, and that's Rockwood, ROKK Wood Audio. Tell them Flixwatcher sent you.
You just heard a Stripped Media production.